I wanna try and take in all the highs, embrace them for more than a moment's time. I want you, please don't move when I push you away. I know I contradict myself some days, but will you ride the lows with me?
Welcome to Mental Health News Radio. I am your host, Kristen Sunanta Walker. Our goal is to help discussions about mental health be a regular part of your daily life, no different than discussions about physical health. Mental illness can be a topic of discussion under the umbrella of mental health, along with so many other topics. This show is the original program on mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com. Our network of shows are played in over 180 countries and cover more topics under that umbrella than you can possibly imagine. We were talking about mental health long before it became cool and popular to talk about, and thank goodness it has become so popular. We have incredible guests, advocates, patients, experts, people. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy our intro music, a song named Lows, written by Aubrey Toon. You can find her music at www.aubreytoone.com.
That night when I started praying, I cried, will you ride the lows with me? Will you ride the lows with me? When I'm down, my vision gets blurry.
Hey, listeners, I have David Woods Bartley here. He's a speaker, trainer, writer, and advocate. He's a storyteller who opens minds, touches hearts, and inspires others to action by sharing his journey from mental hellness to mental wellness. And boy, do I understand the mental hellness part for sure. David, thank you for coming on the show.
It is, Kristen, it is so great to be here. I've been looking forward to this since we connected. I don't know, was it like a month ago or so that the universe put us together?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we just like immediately boom, right into it, which
Exactly.
is what you and I find very comfortable to do. It's the rest of the world that sometimes goes, I don't know what to do with this information.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you all missed a couple of gears before you went to full speed.
Exactly. Right, exactly. We go full speed to the point where we end up in that mental hellness if we don't watch it, right?
Amen. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, let's go from most recent backwards. I've never done it that way before. Let's talk about what you just went through with a bout of depression and
Okay.
how what I love hearing about, because I have those things too, but it's interesting when you go through it and you've been in a lot of therapy and you've written about it and you've been an advocate and told the story. In some ways, I have felt like, oh, that means that I'm supposed to not ever have problems again.
You know what? You put it so beautifully, which is one of the reasons that it just felt so connected with you when we first talked. Yeah, so I'm 61 years old and I have lived with just awful depression for basically 50 years.
Yeah.
But I'm a very compliant person when it comes to therapy and medication and support groups, and
Thank God.
so I'm really good at it. I am. It's just, and so I was totally taken aback at the end of last year when, while doing all those things, and like you said, just assuming that's fine, I will be able to manage this condition because I work so hard at it. Listen, I went to a place of hell that I literally had never been to before. And it just, it took everything out of me. And and I don't even have a lot of memory about the most worst parts. It was that bad from about Christmas and then January and February. And my beloved had shared with me that every day I would basically know if beg may not be too hard of a word, to just let me die.
Yeah.
And so we really didn't know. And I say we because I'm blessed to be surrounded by incredible people. My sweetheart, our children, my three brothers, my therapist, my psychiatrist. And so we didn't know what to do. And we were guided to something that many of your listeners have probably heard about. I don't know how many have actually experienced, and it's that thing called ECT. And for people who don't know what that is, that's electroconvulsive therapy, or as most people like to say, shock therapy.
Right.
And most everybody knows about it by watching One Flew Over a Cuckoo's Nest, and it's nothing like that. And what I can tell you, Kristen, is 32, that's a 3 and a 2, 32 sessions later, the most recent of which was about a week ago, changed my life.
Really?
What I like to say is ECT kicked depression's ass. And I had an appointment with my psychiatrist yesterday, who I just love this man. Dr. Daniel Binus. He is just, I adore him. I do. And I don't know how many people have a psychiatrist where you can tell him, you know what, I love you. And he says back to you, I love you too.
Yeah. When you find those gem people that are psychiatrists or counselors or, peer support, whatever, when you find the gems out there, you're like, oh man, these are the people we say thank you for being in the profession.
Oh, I adore him. And so I hadn't seen him in a while because I was so, the focus was ECT. I mean, at the beginning, Kristen, we were doing, and again, I say we because, my recovery, my healing is a whole team effort. And so we were doing 3 days a week. And then after, I can't even remember, then we did 2 days a week, then we did 1 day a week. And then now we're at like once a month. And we're going to continue once a month till the end of the year. And then we'll figure out, do we do maybe once a quarter or anything else? But just it has worked so beautifully for me. And here's just to give people an idea, and this works really well. So right now, I'm in life for me is challenging, and I'll explain why. I have a bone on bone on my left hip. And I am in almost constant physical pain.
Right.
And we're working to manage it. And at one point I'm gonna have to get a new hip. But it hurts like hell. It does. And that's those of us, who dance with the whole depression thing, we know what it's like when we have physical pain. So I got that. And my business last year flourished and was abundant and everything else. And this year I don't quite understand why. It's almost like I don't know. So I'm in a lull.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring those two things up, because I just want to be, because you have created this beautiful space for me just to say, hey, you know what? This is the way that it is. Those two things. And
that's a lot. That would take anybody down.
It is. And here's
and
here's what I told Dr. Binus yesterday. And I said, you know what, Dr. Binus? So I explained about my hip. I explained about my business. And I said, and you know what? And he said, what? I'm not depressed. And he's like, oh my gosh, really? He said, I'm not depressed. I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
I'm sad. I'm frustrated. I might get angry. But I've never, Kristen, had the experience where life, and there's been some days of late where it feels like it's kicking my ass. I've never had that experience where I haven't been depressed, where I've not been depressed.
Have you ever felt like the depression sort of gave you a safety blanket sometimes from the world?
Oh my gosh. You're so great. That's such a great question.
I get it. I'm right there with you.
No, I know you are. You got to give me a second to process that. I would say yes. And I think a lot of it would come, and I think you will totally agree with this. familiarity, comfortability, which is almost an oxymoron. Saying, what are you talking about? How could you use the word comfortability when you're talking about depression?
Oh,
Well,
yes, you can.
because it's a familiar place that it's just you can just step into. I'm not saying that I'm not saying that stepping into that place is happy, makes you happy, because of course it doesn't. But and for anybody who's listening, and this I think is a perfect place to talk about this, is sadness and depression are two entirely different things.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm blessed to last year I did a lot of work with kids, and kids are phenomenal. And there are some school systems that had me come in and talk very openly about suicide and things like that,
Good.
and the kids respond. And so I was working with some second graders, and with second graders up from like kindergarten to up till about fourth grade, it's a different talk. You know, it's not either, some of the intensity is backed off. So I was working with second graders. Kristen, you'll love this. So I was working with second graders, and I just, it's one of those, this, like, I don't know, the universe says, hey, dude, ask this question. Okay. And I asked the kids, I said, hey, do you think there's a difference between sadness and depression? And Kristen, the kids looked at me like I was an idiot. They were like, of course there is. Like, what are you talking about, dummy?
Isn't it great how much they know compared to us when we were first going through this shit?
Well, exactly. And check this out. So I said, okay, who wants to tell me what the difference is? And a little boy in the front row, hand up, waving it back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And I'm like, I'm thinking, dude, what do you know? So I said, all right, brother, lay it on me. What's the difference between sadness and depression? He said, it's simple. When you're sad, you know why, but when you're depressed, you don't.
Oh, out of the mouth of babes. Oh my gosh.
Is that not incredible?
Yeah, I mean, and it shows you
Oh,
all the work that
oh
people
my
have been doing in this
God.
space to reach those kids that age to where they would know this young.
I know. And
Oh,
so yeah, and I always like to say that, for the folks who are out there who will listen to your amazing podcast, or maybe, the souls who will come to a talk that I've given, and they themselves are not suffering, but they really they want to understand people like you and me. So I want to make sure I include that, like that section, because I think I can look out in an audience, and because that's such like concentrated truth, people who want to understand, maybe they have somebody in their life who's depressed, and they're thinking, oh well, come on, no, it's no big deal, it's big sadness. But then when now they have the clarity, oh no, when you're sad, you know why, but when you're depressed, you don't.
yeah.
And the other quote, and I'm a freak about quotes. I love quotes.
Me too. I
Oh,
live by
gosh,
them. Yeah.
it's just incredible. You love this. So Chef David Chang is a famous chef, and he has bipolar. And check out the quote that he has about depression, which again helps people either to give them the sense to feel like, hey, I feel like somebody hears me, like they get me, or people who like, oh wow, I didn't realize it was like that. So
Yeah.
the chef says this: when you're depressed, you're convinced that everything you think is true.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh my gosh. So kind
And
of come all the
yeah, and you don't have the ability, that's the thing. You don't have the ability to shut off that depression voice either. So it's not
right.
like, oh, just don't think about that. Why are you remunerating that over this? If I'm saying the wrong words, please don't leave a freaking comment to correct me. Oh, but anyway, the grammar police not needed here. Um, God, it's gotten crazy out there, let me tell you. But anyway,
To circle back to put a kind of a period on this part. So the ECT, and you were so right when you said that. I This whole thing took me by some, like, that's, I don't even have a better way to say it, because it needs to be more powerful. It totally shocked me.
Yeah.
that I would delve back into. I could understand it, like if like, oh yeah, I was feeling good, stop taking my meds, and if I figured I don't need to go to therapy and don't need to go to group, and but
But
still
you were
work.
doing all the
I was doing
stuff.
all that stuff. Now, my beloved, and who's incredible, I love this, love of my life. I think she's right. I think last year I was I wasn't balanced in that I was so incredibly busy. Um, I was literally traveling all over the world, doing a lot of work with the military because they had this horrific problem, of course, with suicide. And my beloved eldest brother, my three brothers are amazing. Eldest did 42 years in the army, went from the very lowest enlisted to becoming a two-star general.
Wow.
And he's always been, we lost our father. I was just 7. He was 18. He's always been my dad. And so when I go to work with the military, I feel like it's kind of, Kristen, it's like my way of honoring my brother. So my beloved thinks that I just living, I wasn't balanced, and it caught up with me. So I'm like, well, she's very wise. She just got her graduate degree, and she is a school psychologist. So I should maybe listen to her. Would be a good idea.
Read up on the spoon theory, David.
I don't know what that is.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Just read up when we're done here. Read up
Okay,
on the
I gotta,
spoon theory. It
I gotta,
works for chronic pain, which is something that you're dealing with, but it also
yes.
applies to what you're talking about, because that is exactly how I burned myself out many times. And sometimes it was just burnout. It wasn't depression. I was literally just burnt out from the traveling and the overdoing it and the overdoing it, because that's what the world tells you is how you get successful, is to just go and go and go and go and go. And we're not wired to be able to do that
No,
because of our sensitivities, which is a strength. But that means that you have to be careful about how many spoons you're using during your daily life. And pain and depression take up a hell of a lot of spoons. And when you're out of spoons, you're out.
no, I will. I just wrote it down. And one last thing about the whole ECT is, so I go to a psych hospital. Um, the the people who have, I was going to say treated, but I don't like that. I mean, it's a good word. The people who have cared for me over these
Mm.
last 6 months have been nothing short of extraordinary. My I have another psychiatrist, Dr. Lauren Marassa. It's always a different anesthesiologist. And just so people know, just in case people are wondering, like, well, what happens in ECT? The quick thing. So I go in, talk to Dr. Marassa. She's putting electrodes. Is that what it's called?
Yep.
Electrodes around my head. And then anesthesiologist is putting the IV in my right arm. And then we're having a conversation, talking about, catching up real quick and everything else. And then I've done, so the 32 sessions that I've done also have done ketamine with those. So the anesthesiologist will inject ketamine in me while I'm awake. And then it's always been a male. So I'm being respectful.
Yeah.
It's always, he will always says the same thing to me. They say, "Are you ready for your nap?" Yes, I am. And Kristen, that's what it is. So then what happens is, while I'm asleep and I'm fully under general anesthesia, I don't hear anything. And I'm out. Just and they what they do is they induce with electricity a seizure in my mind, 30 to 45 seconds. And then I wake up in recovery with the nurses. It's either Amanda or Betty or Jeremy, and 32 times. It's a really sacred, intimate experience.
Yeah.
I said this to them recently. I said, I've got to tell you that in all the time, in the 6 months I've been coming, I have never once felt like a psych patient. Never.
That's so, oh, hats off to these people. My God.
Yeah, they're it's and it's the I'll get emotional. The week ago Friday, on my last session, when I was I was having an extended conversation with Amanda, and we were just talking about life, um and she looked at me and she said, "David, I got to tell you, she said, of all the patients that we have, we were really pulling for you to get better. And I
Oh.
was like, oh my God.
Oh.
Like, how, how great is that? And
Yeah.
I burst into tears. Like, thank you so much. But I mentioned that just for maybe the people who are listening to your incredible podcast who are who work in a psych hospital. So, thank you for all of you who do that. Thank you for what you do. Because in fact, it's gotten to the point now because I've gone so many times. I actually feel like a VIP. I really do. It's
Okay,
incredible.
question for you with the experience. So I'm assuming, and maybe I shouldn't, that you saw the movie with Jim Carrey, The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind or something like that. Have you
No,
seen?
I know what you're referring to. I don't think I've seen it.
Okay. Well, the whole thing about that is somebody coming in and erasing painful memories. And then just before it's too late or on its way to being too late, they realize, oh my gosh, you don't want to erase those memories. They're
Mm,
part of where you got. But here's what I think about that. When you deal with all of the different neurodivergent stuff that's going on in your brain, that a lot of it is caused by trauma, right?
right.
Some
Yep.
things you're born with, and some things are caused by actual trauma. So your brain works at, warp speed, and you remember everything with such weird clarity. And it makes it hard to get well because you're ruminating over, oh my gosh, I did that. Oh, and I did that. There's so much shame around yourself and ways you've behaved and ways you behaved that weren't great because you were in a horrible place. And what do people think of you? All that stuff. What I wonder with ECT is, does it help um, calm that down? Does it take that away? Like, what does it do to that piece of you that walks around with the mental hellness, which is that memory of remembering every damn thing that's happened to you?
It's again, amazing question. Thank you. It's incredible that you, my dearest sister. So I was raped on repeated occasions when I was 12 years old by a Boy Scout leader
Mm,
when I was new in the Scouts after having gone through Cub Scouts. And then they have a thing called Weeblos, which is it's like being in junior high school. And then this monster came, and every time he did it, he said, David, these are initiations, and all the boys go through it, but we never talk about it.
mm,
So I mentioned that just because one, it's important
yeah.
because when I talk about that I've lived with depression and suicidal ideations for 50 years and I'm 61, I know when it started.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
because it started there. So I was talking to somebody literally within the last couple of weeks, and then the whole conversation came up about how when a child in the developing mind, when trauma happens, it screws it up. It messes up the construction, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And then I thought about it because Kristen, what's happened since I've done so much ECT is the first thing that I noticed, one, I'm disappointed, not depressed. Okay, that's huge. But the other thing is that I have more immediate available access to my emotions and my feelings. And I
Ooh.
was and I was never, you know, uh, stoic and catatonic and I don't know if that's the right word right there. But I was always pretty good about emoting. But it's like now when I go give a speech, it's I am going to cry. It's just the way that it is.
Go for it.
It is, and I'm totally cool with it. Actually, I think it's made me a better speaker. I
Oh,
think it's made me.
absolutely.
It's so to your question. I got to thinking. I actually think ECT has gone in and done almost like a remodel.
Mm.
I literally think, and maybe it's because I've done so much. I don't, the average person. I think my beloved told me average number is like 11 or 12 sessions. And, I'm at 32 and counting because you know what?
You needed a lot of help, a lot of
Well,
resets.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I think there might have been, yeah.
And that's
Well,
totally
oh,
perfectly wonderful. I mean,
I love going now. I've
mm,
always loved going because of the people, and I don't feel anything. It's taking them out. I think yes, I think ECT has gone in and what was the construction, quote unquote, that got damaged and messed up and was incomplete, maybe even ECT now, because of the fact that it causes a seizure. It's a
rewiring.
dramatic, yeah, it's a dramatic experience, that's going on neurologically in my brain.
Mm,
I think that ECT, it's rebuilding. It really is. And it's not like, I mean, I still have a memory of those things, but it's interesting. So it's interesting. I'm just thinking out loud. So I still have a very clear memory of what happened.
but all the of it isn't hanging around to it.
Right.
Mm.
Exactly. And then there's this other part that even that would be great. But I even got this other benefit of being able now to be able to share my from hellness to wellness in such a way that I'm actually able to emote, add with while I'm while I'm telling the story,
Mm,
which manifests at, as tears. Um,
yeah.
yeah, so and I've become. I told my Dr. Binus yesterday. I said, Dr. Binus, if anybody ever is with you, and a lot of times ECT becomes the an option when people have treatment resistant depression. I said, if people he doesn't do ECT. If people, maybe want to try it, but they're uncertain, I said, please give my phone number.
Yeah.
I told Dr. Marasa, who is my ECT psychiatrist, I'm like, if people want to talk, I please, because I'm out, like I'm on a crusade now
Mm.
to like just please people at least give it a try. And because the truth is, it has a very high level of success, but there's a huge amount of fear.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Like who
Uh,
wants to be shocked? Like me.
well, if you're in enough pain, that's gonna, is potentially an answer. Yeah, I'm one of those people like, okay, I'll try it. I haven't tried ECT, but at different moments, I have been like, I've certainly tried other things that, were like, maybe that wasn't such a good idea, but I was so desperate for some kind of help.
Oh no, exactly. I, I did 8 sessions of standalone ketamine treatments where I went, wonderful psychiatrist. So go and they give you an injection, and that's kind of like a whole. That's like a trip that you go on. There's definitely kind of a, let's say, hallucination, but it's an out of body experience. But it didn't do anything for me.
Mm.
Like, but I think the ketamine that they add in as part of my ECT treatment, I think potentially is is making a difference as well. So,
I think it's interesting, the rewiring piece,
mm,
because that's this, your development. My same thing with me. 12 is when all hell broke loose, and I went from, running. And it's not like there wasn't stuff for me happening before that, but 12 was when so the shit hit the fan, so to speak.
right.
So yeah, you get interrupted on your journey. And I remember running and playing, and like the day before everything that went down, I was like running around with my friends and not even thinking about what I was doing and laughing so hard we're peeing our pants and did it. And then the next day, boom, life is different. You're now an adult in 24 hours. And that messes with your brain. It messes with your
Oh,
development. It does what we're talking about, wires it in a way that is not helpful. It's
no, and you
helpful to get you through the trauma that you've experienced, but it is not helpful for your ongoing journey.
No, and I think, and you said so beautifully, I think it messes with your soul.
Oh God, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You
Any
know,
kind of
I
sexual
think,
abuse like that, that is a soul scorching. Talk about things that you don't want to remember. And then you take that pain and it bleeds into every other freaking relationship in your life, every single one of them.
no, and you know, and I have no idea how many hours of therapy I've done, and they've been incredible. I mean, I have a whole bunch of different therapists and support groups and everything else. And the thing that still hangs with me is I still have terrible body dysmorphia. I do.
Yeah.
I hate I hate to be naked. I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it. And so, you know, I've learned how to go through an entire day and not look in the mirror because
Yep.
I don't want to
Yep.
look at what I see. It's, my family is incredibly supportive and loving, and my beloved, of course, is amazing. And I don't know if I'll ever get over it. No, that may be the one thing, but who knows? Maybe,
Maybe
and
you will.
maybe, yeah, and maybe the ECT rewiring, maybe it's a, there can be where the rewiring is done, but the benefit actually takes a little while to manifest. Maybe that's it, but who knows?
Yeah, I think of it like I just picture as you're talking, and I picture some of the journeys I've taken that weren't ECT, but they were like that where you just everything just got rewired. And I just picture all these connections, like what isn't, oh, that connection isn't working anymore. So, oh,
Mm,
I'm gonna go bzz and over and do this connection. And it's like finding you're giving your brain a chance to make new healthier connections because you have all this work that you've put in. That's how I feel about it. Like I've put a lifetime of work into studying every facet of mental health, going to shamans, going to psychiatrists, going to group that whatever it is to learn what's going on with other people and with myself. And so you have all this training. You're at like an Olympian, right? You are, David, on your journey. Like look at everything that's prepared you. And then here you go. Here's a fresh of your brain. And now we're giving you this reset so that all that training can take root and like go into your body.
mm,
And
no,
it's
I
going
get
to
it.
take a while for that to, I mean, I'm guessing here because I am no psychiatrist, but that's what it has felt like with me. Like, I cry every single day now, but I'm telling you, 99% of my crying is over joyous things like,
No, I get it.
my cat is so cute. I just want to, or whatever. Like, or I met somebody at the grocery store and they were so sweet. And so on the way back to the car, I'm crying. And believe me, to cry tears of joy off and on all day long is amazing because while I was going through my journey with depression over and over and over again, the crying was certainly not joyous tears. And
No.
most of the time, I wasn't even crying, years of no crying,
Hmm.
which
No.
is so helpful.
Yeah, I cried with Dr. Binus yesterday. Just in
Such
the
a
presence
release.
in the presence of it, and it were happy tears.
Yeah,
In the presence of a man who I know truly loves me, and he's my psychiatrist.
it's amazing.
It's just so it really is. It's and I can I tell a quick story?
Yeah, absolutely. Please, please.
Jumping around. So one of the
That's how
things
our brains work, right? We jump around.
exactly.
Sorry, listeners, you're literally following us completely
I know
unmasked. We
we
jump
are.
around.
Yes, we do. So the base talk that I give is talk. I call it the why of suicide and the how of hope. So first half is problem. What happened? Like, what? Why are you going to jump off a 730-foot tall bridge on August 31st, 2011?
Mm,
And then, what does it feel like to be depressed? And then I pivot at self care, and there's where I talk about ECT. And then the last question is, how can we respond to this crisis of suicide? And I teach it's all about connection. That the first responder who approached me on the bridge, he didn't make contact with me, Kristen. He made connection with me.
Mm.
And connection is in the definition of Brene Brown, who says, I define connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment, and they derive strength and sustenance from the relationship. Like, hello, brilliant woman. Yes. So in that space, how could you not feel hope?
Right.
And then you think, okay, what's hope? Okay, defined, dictionary, the feeling that what is wanted can be had. Okay.
Wow.
Amazing. So connection creates hope. Hope saves lives. People like you and me, we don't kill ourselves when we feel hopeful. We don't kill ourselves when we feel that what we want can be had.
Right.
So I teach, then the question becomes, okay, well, how can I create connection? Well, I teach 3 ways. I teach like recognition, understanding, and expression. So 1, become great at remembering people's names. Do that. Use curiosity to create understanding. When you see something that doesn't make sense, don't ask why, because why questions suck. Ask what. It's not why did you do that? It's what inspired you to do that. And then the third part is expressions. Let people know how you feel. Like, do that. And it's all, then I compare my methods with what Dr. Drew Ramsey says. Now, Dr. Ramsey is an esteemed psychiatrist, professor at Columbia, of all places. He's a farmer, big into brain and gut health. A published author, all the amazing man. If you want to follow him, he's crazy on Instagram. Marie, check out what he says. Someone you see today is thinking about killing themselves. Your smile, your question, your love could save them. Trust me, they told me it did. So we hold this in our hands. So you can just imagine a patient sitting with Dr. Ramsey and them saying the only reason they're there is because, gosh, somebody smiled at me. Somebody asked me a question, thus allowing me to express myself. Somebody expressed their love. So all that to say, I want to share with you, if I may, dear sister, an incredible experience I had. So I was working with an Army battalion. So a battalion's about 500 to 600 soldiers. And so in the Army, when you give a talk, they call it a brief. God knows why. So I had worked with this battalion over like 2-3 days, and they were led by Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Traus. And so the end of Colonel Traus, an amazing man. And we hit it off like right away and became really, by the end of the 3rd day, really closely connected. And so Kristen, at the end of the 3rd day, he said, David, would you please come into my office? And I said, absolutely, sir. And so I went into his office and he said, David, I can't thank you enough for your talks to my soldiers. They made a huge difference. But then, Kristen, his whole demeanor changed. He said, David, but I got to tell you, I am so angry. Oh,
wow.
David, what happened to you in the Boy Scouts, I can't get over. I can't even process it. He says, David, I was an Eagle Scout. He said, David, the Boy Scouts helped me become the man I am today. On my best days as a battalion commander, as a colonel, as a father, as a husband, as a man, I learned those things, David, in the Boy Scouts. But your experience was the exact opposite. I don't know how to process that. He says, I'm so angry. And I was like, and I'm taking in Colonel Traus's emotions. And then he took his hand and he reached in the back and he pulled out his wallet, and then he pulled out, it looked like a credit card. And so now I'm confused, as you can imagine. He said, David, when you become an Eagle Scout, they give you one of these. And then he turned the card, and I could see it, and it had the Boy Scout emblem on it. And it said, it's an Eagle Scout card. You talk to any Eagle Scout, they're always carrying this card. I got mine on November 3rd, 1998. It signifies all the work that it took to achieve that milestone. And then, Kristen, he gave me the card, and I held it, and I looked at it, and I said, wow, sir, that's truly, truly significant. And Kristen, I go to give the card back, and this extraordinary man said, no, you keep it. You've earned it.
Oh,
So you can't see what I'm holding in my hand right now is that card.
mm,
That amazing man, he gave me part of himself.
yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times I've given a talk, and at the end of it, an Eagle Scout comes up and shows me their card. That, someone you see today is thinking about killing themselves. Your smile, your question, your love could save them. Trust me, they told me it did. And I think about what that amazing man did for me on that day. And as I say, I'm holding the card. I will always have this card with me.
Yeah, those ones, you remember those ones too in great detail, just as the painful things that you are trying to forget. So yeah, those are the things that spark you forward, and I think help becoming an advocate, that the advocate that you've become. It's things like that help you do that. And then what happens when you become an advocate is you just start living your life as one. There is no differentiation between you and this advocacy that you're doing. Like, if I'm going to the grocery store, I'm going to the grocery store as an advocate, and I'm not going there like, oh, I'm going to help someone because I'm going to smile at them. Oh my gosh, please. I don't have an ego like that. But I do go with, I'm going to be as nice and engaged and listen and make that eye contact and all of those things as I can, because it's good for me. And I also know that it has the potential of being really fantastic for other people. And because I walk in that way, I meet the most amazing people at random places that will sit down and just share their story. And I know it happens to you too. Like, you're not even at an event. Like, I just went to the health food store, and the woman there says, I didn't mention anything about myself. Nothing, my age. And she starts just talking excitedly and whatever. She was not that way with anybody else in the store, but she was with me, and then tells me, I think I have autism. And I was like, what? Okay. What is this? I'm not wearing a t-shirt that says, speak to me about your autism. Like, but that's what happens, right? Like, now
Yes.
this just happens to you. You just have this happen. You walk in somewhere and boom, because of, it's that advocacy shining out of us. We can't help it.
A dear friend of mine asked me to connect with her son, who I knew, but I didn't realize that he had dipped into a really, really dark place. And so she said, would you talk with him? I said, oh my God, absolutely. I said, I love your son. I've always loved him. I just think it's just one of those people. And so over the next like 4 weeks or so, he mostly just back and forth with texts, and I go on the internet and find, some an image that says, I got you, bro, or I love you, which I tell him all the time, most every day, or whatever. And so about a week ago, he had texted me and he said, I got to let you know, I've turned the corner and I'm feeling so much better. And then Kristen, you know what, you know what he said to me?
Hmm.
He said, thanks for reminding me who I am.
Oh, God.
It's like,
I know. You're like your cup runneth over with these with these
oh
incredible
gosh.
things. You're just like, what? The
Yeah.
container is so full.
It's just like,
You
oh
got to
my
go do
God.
ECT to make some more room. You know what I mean? For the fullness that you already have from these experiences. I know it's so much. It's a lot.
No, it is. And I think, if I look at, there's another, if I may, another story about an expression. So until 3 years ago, August 31st of every year was the worst day of the year for me. And that was the anniversary of the day I was going to kill myself. And I'm a January baby. I really don't like summer anyway. It's interesting that my beloved's name is Summer. It just kind of,
Mm.
so.
Mm.
So anyway,
Yeah.
exactly. So 3 years ago, I go to the mailbox. I mean, I'm just in a pissy, shitty mood, right?
Yep.
So I go to the mailbox and there's an envelope. It has my name handwritten, but there's no return address. And I'm just, we've all been in this space before. Like, yeah. So I rip open the envelope and there is a card. And the card has a picture of a glacier and it says advice from a glacier. Now, I'm really not in the mood to hear what a glacier has to tell me. But just in case anybody wants to know what if a glacier could speak, it's the glacier is going to say: carve your own path, go slow, channel your strengths, smooth the way for others, whatever. You know
Right.
what? I don't care. And I mean, just so angry about just the day. And I'm going to throw the card away. But something says, just open it and see, so that you could direct your hatred to the person who would have the audacity to send you this card. So you can't see, of course, but you open it up and in huge crayon letters, it says, happy today. And it is sent by my amazing friend, Greg, who knew, who had kept it in his memory that August 31st was going to be a tough day. So he did something about it
Wow.
to make sure. And here's what he says: hey, just a note to remind you that you are an extraordinary person with so much to give so many others. You are a tremendous source of healing just by your personable presence. This is not only my sentiment, so many others also believe in you. Believe in yourself. Reject the lies. I love you, Greg. And you know what this card did? Do you know what August 31st is now, my dear sister?
Mm.
New Year's Day. And you know what my celebration is? I drive back to the same 730-foot tall bridge where I was going to kill myself 13 years ago. But now I go back there and walk to the same midpoint in an act of celebration because it's New Year's Day. All because a guy knew that I was going to have a hard time on a particular day. And much like Colonel Trouse, he did something about it by expressing himself how he felt about me.
Amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
Just
Amazing.
incredible. And just like, and I think, we can do these things for each other. It's even, when you go next time, I'm big on the name thing. Next time you go out to dinner, and when the server comes up, find out what the server's name is. Sometimes they'll introduce themselves, sometimes they don't. And every time the server comes back to the table to bring you something, to clear something away, use their name.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
and by the end of the experience, you tell me how that person reacts, and I can promise you they will act it will shock you the difference simply because you use their name every time you encounter them.
You know what happens too, especially if I'm with my friend Martha, who is a shaman, but she would never call herself that. Every single time we go out to eat, I don't care if the place is packed. The wait staff ends up sitting with us at our table for a few minutes and crying. Every single time.
I love that.
In a
Beautiful.
good, in a good way. They,
Oh no, exactly.
Martha
That's it.
notices something or I notice something or whatever. Like,
Really,
yeah,
between the two of you, my lord, wow.
we just, and there's a high that no drug could ever get me to, no amount of alcohol, not that could get me to that high that you get when you commune with another human being.
But and you go back, to what the great Brene Brown said. It's when people connection is when people feel seen, heard, and valued.
Yeah.
Like,
And some people don't experience that for years
oh, I
for
know,
whatever
right?
reason. Or they're looking for it and they're so wounded and so that
Mm,
they're like a badger on the outside. And so because they're so feeling so rejected and like nobody's there and they're all crusty and they're covered and they're, like if anybody tries to do anything nice, they're just that's what can happen if you don't have tender loving care at different phases in your life. Well, we should all have it every day, but that just, isn't everybody's experience.
no. So, as I say, I'm engaged to the love of my life, who by the way, Summer asked me to marry her, by the way. So I'm just kind of like, wow. Anyway, and I was married before to an amazing woman who is still an incredibly great friend of mine, Deanna.
Okay.
And Dee and I, the contribution to the world that we had is we operated a very large animal sanctuary, and it was an end
Hmm.
of life animal sanctuary.
We are friends now, David. I'm
I
just letting
know,
you
I
know.
know that. Hello. And the sanctuary was called A Chance for Bliss,
Oh.
named after the first two Boston Terriers that we rescued, Chance and Bliss. And we did no adoptions because we took animals that were dying. So animals came and stayed for whatever period of time. And interesting, and then really I give all credit to Deanna, her ability to care for animals at the end of life was nothing short of spectacular and extraordinary. There wasn't a single animal that lived as long as we thought they would live. Kristen, they always lived significantly longer. So
Wow.
anyway, we became very well known in our community as the place that took animals that nobody wanted. So one day we get a call from an animal shelter. And what happened was, old man in his 80s walked in with this old basset hound cross and went up to the shelter worker and said, "Hi, ma'am. I was out on my walk and I found this dog and he has no identification. And I didn't know what else to do. So I thought I would bring him and turn him in here." And the shelter worker was like, "Oh my God, thank you, sir, so much. That's incredibly kind of you. If you would please fill out, just let us know your name and telephone number and where you found the dog. The dog's well into his teens, obviously. We'll take him in the back and scan him for a microchip. Probably doesn't have one because they really didn't microchip way back when." And so the old man said, "Absolutely, of course." And so he fills out the information. Shelter worker takes this basset hound old dog into the back, scans it for a microchip, and lo and behold, it is microchipped. This dog is microchipped. He was like, "Oh my gosh." So the shelter worker comes back and is elated and says to the man, "Sir, thank you so much. You saved this dog. We can now reunite him with its owner." And then looked at the information that the man had filled out and compared it to the information on the microchip, and it matched.
Hmm.
So from the outside looking in a situation, it's like, are you effing kidding me? Why would you come in and lie?
Right.
You're like, what if I threw you away? You're old. What if I threw you away? I mean, I would have lost my mind.
Yeah.
You know what? You know what the shelter worker did? The shelter worker didn't ask why. You know what the shelter worker looked at him, the old man, and Kristen, you know what she said?
Hmm.
She said, "Sir, what happened?" And at that point, the man burst into tears.
Mm.
And when he could finally collect himself, he said, "This is Joshua. I've had Joshua since he was 8 weeks old, and now he's 16. He said, "There's nothing more important to me in the world than my dog, but I'm dying. And tomorrow I'm going into a medical facility and they won't let me take Joshua. And I begged and I pleaded and I offered to pay money, but they wouldn't let me take him. And I thought, if I told you the truth, that you would instantly put Joshua to sleep. But I know that my boy still has time left, but I didn't know what to do. Please forgive me." And because of the question that amazing person asks, not why, but what, allowing the man to tell his story, the shelter worker said, "Sir, there's a sanctuary down the hill, and they take in old dogs just like Joshua. How about we make a call and see if they have room for one more?"
Ah, yeah.
And we did. An amazing, beautiful, wonderful Joshua who lived for another 18 months came to be at the sanctuary, all because one person asked one question in the presence of something that didn't make sense.
Yeah. Good reminder in today's world. Good reminder about the rush to judgment. And I do to
Mm-hmm.
myself too,
Me too. Oh my gosh. Every time I tell that story, it's I tell it for me. I hope everybody else likes it, but I need it. My gosh. When I'm being an idiot.
Right. Same here. When I'm being a total, yeah, when I have no spoons left and yet I push myself anyway, and then I'm rude to someone. That's rare, but or I'm rude and I didn't realize it. I hurt someone's feelings and I'm a clueless magoo that all those things that you just
Right.
do as a human, and then somebody jumps on it. Oh, look at you. You're not perfect. I see who the real, you're awful. And you're just like, no, I'm just freaking human.
Yeah.
David, I want everyone to know how the heck they can work with you, where they can find you. Please tell everyone where they can find out more about you.
Absolutely. So, one, thank you for this incredible experience. And you're stuck with me now. So let me just preface that.
Yay!
So, there's a website, David Woods, my middle name, davidwoodsbartley.com. I would ask for your understanding, is the website's a little outdated. So, but it gives it gives there's some really cool stories that are on there through videos and others. But please feel free to call me if you'd like, 916-247-6389, or shoot me an email, david@davidwoodsbartley.com. I do individual coaching, but I love to go into organizations, into business, into school, of course, the military, first responders, community mental health, and share my journey from mental illness to mental wellness in that base talk that I talk about, to give people a deeper understanding, the experience of being heard, and then actionable things that align with Dr. Ramsey's quotation, so that literally every single one of us can become experts in suicide prevention, because we know what we have in our hands, what we can do for those smiles, those questions, and those expressions. That just becomes just part of who we are every single day. And I
Yeah.
would love to share that with your organization, your school, anything. It's the purpose of my life.
And we're not kidding. Advocates, yes, that is the purpose of your life. Oh, thank you so much for coming on. You'll definitely have to come on again.
Yes, please. I lots more stories. I'll tease you so you'll get to it'll say, gosh, I should get David on sooner. We had two cows. One was Ferdy, who at the back, Kristen, was 6 feet, and when he raised his head, he was 7 feet.
Oh
And
my God.
his best friend was Manny, who was a 3 foot miniature. And I have an amazing story about Ferdy.
So everybody, go to his website, speak to David, email him, find out what happened.
Exactly. Oh, it's all about I'll tease you that story. It's all about having a bucket of sweet grain.
Oh, yeah, I know all about that too. Yes. Oh, David, thank you so much for coming on.
You, Kristen, sister, you were the best. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you. This was fun. I could do this all day.
Oh, same here. Same here. That's why I do this. Listeners, thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you on the next show.
But will you ride the low, low, lows with me? Will you ride the low, low, lows with me?
One thing you can always count on at Mental Health News Radio Network and my show is that there will always be dogs around. Why? They are natural healers, excellent for your mental health. The original therapy dog Miles has something to say in just a moment. For now, please check out all of our amazing shows at mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com and all your favorite podcast apps. Until next time, I'm Kristen Sananta Walker, and thank you for listening.
Me tonight, and I can ride the low, low, lows with me. I can ride the low, low, lows with me till my vision clears up perfectly. I can ride the low, low, lows with me.
Good boy.